Hi, I'm Roy Castelbuono. Been pastoring the Michiana Philam Church and the St. Joseph Seventh-day Adventist Church for the last 17 and a half years. The most important question, I would say, is one that I experienced without realizing it as a student missionary. But in working with the Center for Community Change the last 2 years, it was put in a very clear form. And that is, instead of doing what I want to do or what the church wants to do, instead of doing what I feel I'm good at or what the church feels they're good at, to start by talking to the leaders of the community and ask them a simple question. Is there anything you see that needs to be done but you don't have the money for, or you don't have the people to do it? Once we ask that question, over the last 2 years, doors have opened up, connections and relationships have been developed, and an energy has been brought into this church that has grown it in terms of attendance, grown it in terms of combined budget, grown it in terms of its energy and its feeling of being alive. Simple question, but 3 years at seminary, 4 years in college, going to pastors' meetings for 45 years. That question was never brought to us in the way that the center brought it to us, and it works. I think for me, what has helped build a healthy, spiritually connected church has been time. My wife and I, perhaps are a little unusual in that after returning from Japan, where we were missionaries for 5 years, we stayed in a 2-church district in the Lansing area for 17 and a half years. And we moved down here to the St. Joseph, Berrien Springs area, where we've pastored 2 churches for 18 years. And there's something that happens when you stay that long. You have to change. You can go 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and you're doing a lot of good things, and there's good energy, and people are happy. You're preaching, you're teaching, conference is happy. But it seems like, and I've heard this from other pastors too, if you get to the 8-year point, 9-year point, you have to change in more fundamental ways. Or you can go to a different district. But for me, staying, I had to work through a transformation for myself. I had to change in ways that enabled me then to continue to minister in productive ways to the same group of people, or a lot of the same people. People come and go. But the same church family for the next 7, 8, 9 years. So hang around. You know, even though working in 2 different districts over 35 years has been very, very affirming, we've seen churches grow, we've seen people grow, we've seen children go from babies to college age. But in the last 2 years, I've experienced change in a way that I never had before. And that came from the excitement of actually connecting with the community. I think we live in a day and age where For a lot of people, their communities are online. Their Facebook community, their YouTube community, the group that they hang out with. So our communities in general are more distant from each other and more fragmented. But with the question that the Center for Community Change gave us to lead with, it has opened doors with our township, it's opened doors with our library, it's opened doors with the other groups in our community that we have been in contact with. And they've been excited by our involvement. We've been excited by our involvement. And it's brought a whole different feeling to coming to church. So we're not just coming to church where everybody's had a good week, and now we're happy to sing songs and worship together, study the Bible, and grow. But that added aspect of people coming in knowing that they've made a difference in the community and that the community is aware of them in a way that's never been before, that's changed our lives as individual members of the church. And as that's happened, it has changed the life of our church as corporate whole. Whenever we get together, there's a different feeling, different energy level, a different excitement. And that's been neat to see. I think my first experience as a field mentor was with the second of my two churches, because we at St. Joe had signed an MOU with the Center for Community Change. We've been engaged the last 2 years. But the other church I pastor, the Michiana Philam Church in Berrien Springs, has not been a part of that program. They have helped us in some of our projects. And this past summer, I had already announced to them that I was retiring in the fall, they decided that they wanted to get involved. And even though we didn't follow the typical track there, since I had already gone through much of the program, we just jumped right in. And I asked them for who they felt the major community groups were. They listed 6. And I asked the board for volunteers to set up an appointment, then go with me to meet with the head of that organization. And we did 3 organizations in the first month. Out of that, 2 projects developed, which we've already engaged with. And I saw a change in the energy and excitement that the members were feeling there at Philam, both in anticipating the projects that we did, and engaging in the projects, and then how that carries over to our worship services and how we're getting together, in other ways as a church family. So I wasn't officially a mentor. I was their pastor, but I look forward to that same type of experience happening, where without a lot of deep theology or intensive sessions, you go out to your community leaders and you ask them what needs to be done that they don't have the money for or the people for, and you see what doors open. That's been the most fun, I think, that I've had as a pastor in pastoral-related, church-related, community-related relationships. Nothing else comes close. As I was preparing the last sermon that I preached here in this church and at Michiana Philam, it took me back to my roots, what led me to becoming a pastor, because I grew up as a pastor's kid, and the one thing I knew I would never go into was being a pastor. But being a student missionary in Japan and teaching Bible classes to our English school students changed my life. It changed me. It awakened me to the excitement of seeing people come to know Jesus as their Lord, as their Savior. And so as I was preparing my last sermon, I came across a book that my students had all written in, and I hadn't read that book or seen that book probably for 20 years or more. And the common theme in each of their entries was they're thanking me, thanking us for telling them about Jesus and their excitement in learning about Jesus. That was what led me into pastoral ministry. And that still is, at the heart and core of what drives me, what drives us as a church, and what drives our leaders. And it still is, I think, the most rewarding thing that I've experienced, can experience, and that is seeing people come to know Jesus as their Lord, as their Savior, and making a commitment of their life to Him. Seasons of discouragement are no fun. There come times where have come times where I have felt dried out, energy is low, but at the same time, from my experience in talking to other pastors, that's part of the growing process. Those periods of feeling maybe like you're wandering in the wilderness, or that you are struggling to find or feel or recover the same energy and vigor and excitement that you had earlier on at that church or earlier on in your ministry. I met once with a group of pastors when we were in East Lansing. It was not an Adventist group, it was a community group. I had been there for about 14 years at that point. And one thing that they all agreed on is that you come to the 8-9 year point in a pastorate and you have to change. And it's not always easy. It's not always fun. It's not always pleasant. If you're going to continue your ministry with that same group of people, you have to grow in new ways. So I would say, sometimes we feel discouragement because of problems we are not bringing to the situation in our church. But that, on the other hand, staying with a group of people and feeling the challenge to grow personally and working through that and coming out on the other side a different person, a reinvigorated person, and allowing that situation to make me a better person, that's worthwhile. So it'd be nice to be on the mountaintop forever. It'd be nice to always be toasted and loved and affirmed in every way. But it's not so bad. It's not bad to wander into the desert and go through that period of trial or testing and to come out at the other end a new person, a stronger person, more aware of your own strengths and weaknesses, more aware of the change that God is working in you. I'm not sure there are habits I think of in terms of passing them on. Every pastor has different approaches to sermon prep, Bible studies, running boards, things of that nature. But what I would want to pass on is how to go about taking these two simple questions, or really one simple question with two options, taking it to the community leaders, asking them what needs to be done. Because it's easy for us to rely on the things we're good at, things we like to do, things we think they need. But to ask that question, and yet then you still have to take their responses and create a ministry. And for me, that's been a very fun part, to hear, in our case, from the township director, we have 300 fire hydrants that need to be painted. And being able to, I didn't like that at first. I didn't want to do it. But to be able to take that and think about it and involve the college community at Andrews, involve our church, bring it all together into a project that made a very serious impact on our community, that was exciting. That process of envisioning based on what is being brought to us. And so we've done that a bit now at Michiana Philam as well. We ended up waxing 6 fire trucks in the police chief's car. We also worked at the corn dog booth at the Berrien County Youth Fair. Things we've never done before. Connected with people we didn't know before, and have started to become directly involved in the communities. So it's a very creative process. I don't know why I didn't stumble on it before, but it's made a big difference in both of our churches here. I preached my last sermon in this church a couple of weeks ago. I preached my last sermon at Michiana Philam the week after that. And so people ask me, how does it feel to be retired? To be honest with you, I don't feel like I'm retired. To continue working as a field mentor and to work with Ignacio Goya and the team at the Center for Community Change, I'm just excited about it. It has been so much fun, literally fun. And there's a lot of things about pastoral ministry that aren't fun, like, nominating committees and things of that nature. But this has been so much fun that to look forward to working with other pastors who are going through the process of learning what the Center for Community Change is about, to hear what their community leaders are saying to them, and then to see how they envision responding to that. That's exciting. So I guess technically I am retired, but our first trip that we're taking here in retirement is to Japan, where my wife and I served for 5 years as missionaries before coming back to the States. We are going to, while we enjoy going back to where we started, we're also going to be meeting with some of the administrators in the conference and union, some of the pastors of some of the churches in Tokyo and Osaka, and sharing with them and seeing if they're interested in doing a pilot program there in Japan. So it is exciting to look forward to maybe not having some of the responsibilities that I've had on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, but the thought of continuing to help and work with pastors and churches to apply what the Center for Community Change is built around, that's very exciting to me. To me, what would be by far the most rewarding thing to see happen as a result of continuing to work with the Center for Community Change as a field mentor or in whatever other capacity you would want to use me, is to see pastors and churches have similar experiences to what we've had here in St. Joseph, Michigan, and Michiana Philam, also here in Michigan. That would be fabulous. Because what that has done for our church and our members, what it's done for me personally, has been transformative. To see other churches go through that experience, catch a new vision, to step into new opportunities, develop new ministries that meet needs in their community that they weren't aware of before, and to see the community respond and the appreciation come from the community leaders, community members. That's just exciting. So I look forward to doing that, and we're going to be starting real soon.